Okay, welcome everybody to the inaugural session of the Data Special Interest Group for OpenShift Commons. Wanted to get started. My name's Michael St. John. I actually work for Red Hat in the partner ecosystem. I'm joined here by some of our partners who have a subject matter expertise in different areas of data or subject areas of data. And so we'll hear from some of the folks on the call as well. But let me just kick it off by introducing the SIG. It is meant to be a community forum, and it's meant to generate some lively discussions and interactions about everything data related to Kubernetes. So what subject areas do we typically discuss? You can see some of these on the right-hand side of the slide. Persistent storage, business continuity, disaster recovery strategies, data security and governance for data in Kubernetes, things like databases and vector databases and graph databases, and how those interact with warehouses and data lakes, and the evolution of those things to lake houses that we see these days, right? And things around data discovery federation and search and query capabilities. So the idea behind the special interest group is to get folks from the community together to join fellow practitioners and share ideas, successes, customer successes perhaps, questions that might come up, and have a true discussion and back and forth. We may be including things that are coming up as we're discussing modern virtualization plays, and backup and recovery best practices, ransomware attacks, federated queries, database resiliency, and how those get distributed across multiple deployments, and as well as vector and graph databases for generative AI and predictive AI, things of that nature as well. So whether you're working on solutions for storage and data services, business continuity, disaster recovery, databases, data cache, data discovery, federation, what have you, whatever it is that is data related to Kubernetes, this is the place to be. So I hope you will certainly join us in the future. The website, if you go to the commons.openshift.org website, there is a place on the top here for SIGs or special interest groups, and we have a place on there. So you just click the plus button, and it'll take you down to the data SIG, and you'll have links there to a number of the different areas where you can interact with us. There is an agenda doc. We have red.ht/commons-datasig-agenda, and that will take you directly into the agenda document. This is kept up to date. This is where we keep notes. We keep future sessions as well as notes on existing sessions, and where to get the recordings and things of that nature. One thing that I like to encourage people to do is join our Slack channel. In order to join the channel for the data SIG, you first have to join the Commons Slack workspace. So if you're not already in the Commons Slack workspace, go over to commons.openshift.org and join us on Slack. And then from there, you'll already see it there. It's one of the items in the channel list, but it's the data SIG channel. And if you have trouble finding it, there's the link to get to that. I'd also like to encourage people to submit a talk. Like today is just an introductory call, but if you are doing something, or you want to highlight a product feature, or you want to talk about an experience that you've had, or even if you just want to have a call where you'd like to discuss, hey, this is the way I've tackled the problem, and how are other people doing the same thing, or what types of things that am I missing that we could talk about, and that you could educate me on, or I could educate you on. I would love for you to submit a talk. You can go to this submission link, just fill out a very quick form here. Within the form, there is a Calendly link. So in order to try to keep the calendar consistent, let's say, I will go in and I will block off things as people start to engage and put links in for different sessions. So if you click on the Calendly link that's within this form, you'll be able to see what dates are available and matched up to what your availability might be. And then, of course, please join calls like the one today. They are right now. We're holding them every other Thursday. It's at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern in the U.S., 6 o'clock p.m. Central European time. Of course, the U.S. has to be a little bit different in our in our schedules for changing to daylight time versus standard time. So that might be off a little bit a couple of times a year, but keep an eye on the calendar, and the calendar link is right there. If you missed one, we do have a YouTube playlist as well, so check it out. And I also want to bring up that we will be at KubeCon the day before KubeCon, so that's November 12th. This is for the North America KubeCon. There will be a live event for OpenShift Commons. So it's an OpenShift Commons live gathering. It will be at Le Méridien in Salt Lake City, that will be on November 12th. This breakout session is the data breakout session. There's also a validated patterns special interest group breakout that I will be doing with folks as well. But this one for the data SIG is at 1 o'clock p.m. If you're not already registered for the OpenShift Commons gathering, you can do so today. Just go to the website and go ahead and register. It is free to register. You can take a look at this QR code or follow the red.ht/datasig breakout link and see a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about. All right, and then from that perspective, I'd like to kind of bring in some of the category SMEs so that we can have a little bit more discussion about some of the areas that we might be talking about. I might start off with a little bit around modern virtualization, and so we'll have some good discussions about data and storage from that perspective. Some discussion points around leveraging existing investments. It's always a very top concern for folks who are making that change. Orchestrating CSI drivers, why CSI drivers might not scale the way you'd like them to scale for large-scale deployments of VMs, and how people are tackling the orchestration of those CSI drivers in different arenas. Managing persistent volumes and LUNs, file, block, and object storage considerations, things like storage vMotion capabilities, and software-defined storage, replicas, RAID. How do you deal with all of those different things? I'm going to move over to persistent storage. I believe we have Luis Rico on today, so maybe Luis, you could talk a little bit about this.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So just introducing myself. So Luis Rico, product manager for Trident and Kubernetes at NetApp. We are one of the ones that provide this persistent storage for Kubernetes in the industry. And this discussion group is to speak about anything related to persistent storage, no? So, and it can be absolutely any topic, no? So these are a few examples of something that we believe it could be interesting for everybody. So how the container storage interface is evolving with new features, what is on demand, what is not, and also trying to mirroring what is the storage special interest group and the data protection work group in speaking about at Kubernetes, upstream Kubernetes level, that will impact sooner or later the OpenShift solution, okay, and for example, what is happening with COSI, or what is going to happen with volume groups, bringing consistency groups, the old storage consistency groups into Kubernetes, or the change block tracking. That is very interesting for disaster recovery and business continuity. Okay, so and also, as just Michael was mentioning, all the challenges that OpenShift virtualization brings to the table about this, to the storage part, especially this storage vmotion like gap that we have with OpenShift virtualization, and that we are going to try to solve at storage level. So all of these things and any new things that you can bring to the table, we are happy to discuss anything and to clarify, any doubt that people has about all these topics. Thank you. Back to you.
Sure. Yeah, and I think overall a lot of the things that we're seeing in storage, very much affect a lot of the other subject areas. So it's always a really good overlay, I would say, to a lot of these discussions is, okay, so how do you do that in the context of the persistent storage layer? How do you do that in context of the application state as it pertains in a Kubernetes cluster, right? So, and with that, move over to business continuity and DR, and I know that we have Rodolfo from Trilio and Matt from Veeam on the call today. So maybe we could start off with Rodolfo, and I know that there's a few things in here that get into the next subject area, which will be data security, and maybe we'll tie into the next slide a little bit. So Rodolfo, do you want to start off?
Yeah, so I am Rodolfo from Trilio. We do backup and disaster recovery for Kubernetes and OpenShift. And yes, as Luis mentioned before, what I expect from these meetings is customers and prospects coming to us, asking the 1,000 questions they have, their challenges, their problems there. I used to do this in my previous platform. How can I achieve this in OpenShift? Okay. And this is very challenging because some features we still don't have. We still need to build. We have a lot of stuff and a different way of doing things, but we need to educate the customers. Some of them were in a rush. Some of them, they're taking years to move on, okay? But some of them, they're coming already to these platforms, and they need to solve these complexities, new skill sets, and a lot of stuff. Many things are different in Kubernetes and in OpenShift. So things like stateful data inside Kubernetes, shall we put it inside Kubernetes OpenShift, or shall we keep it outside, or databases, or how we can improve our disaster recovery times, okay, if something happens, or ransomware attacks, how do we fix that problem? Okay, so yeah, I expect customers coming to us in the OpenShift Commons in Salt Lake City and ask these kind of questions, because we are getting these questions every day. So I think having some documentation, having some meetings, I think it's going to help a lot the whole community to have a better understanding of the how we're building stuff and what you can do right now and what is coming. Okay, I think that's the interesting.
Yeah, and Matt, did you have anything you'd like to add to that before we get to the next slide?
For sure, yeah. I think Rodolfo did a good job, kind of overlaying the landscape of kind of what we're seeing in terms of the industry, both from kind of customers, prospects, and we're at a particularly interesting time. It's an exciting time to be in data protection and just in our industry. I think in general, I think so. Myself, I come from a vSphere virtualization background. So I think I certainly empathize with a lot of our prospects and customers that are looking to move to a modern platform like OpenShift virtualization. I'll echo Rodolfo's point of, it's definitely an education process, right? So you consider, it's a relatively new production workload on OpenShift. I know, Red Hat, obviously you guys are being very good in terms of velocity and introducing new features, capabilities. But I think oftentimes we're spoiled or take for granted some things that have been in vSphere for 5-10 years that are not necessarily easy things to accomplish. So I guess that's a hat tip to the engineers at vSphere, with their workload. But I think also, I think it lays out what we know we need to do to make sure that we can support our customers and prospects when they move to this. I think the other aspect too, just to double down a little bit on one point Rodolfo made, was, we're really coming kind of from two different directions here. We've got virtualization admins, right? So that kind of traditional VM use case with VM persistent data. Obviously, there's inherent persistence there that we need to protect, provide our, RTO, RPO compliance there. But we also have DevOps and DevSecOps engineers, platform engineers coming strictly from the containerization or more Kubernetes focused side, where there's almost like this opposing understanding of why we need BCDR, right? The Vert guys get it; they know they need backup and disaster recovery for their VMs. But sometimes we were often, in the field, we hear from those DevSecOps and platform engineers, why do we need data protection? I thought Kubernetes is all ephemeral. So I think from a data protection perspective, there's a lot of education that, I'm sure Rodolfo gets, like you said, gets questions every day. So do we, in terms of, what is this? What do we need to protect? Why do we need to protect it? But it's just understanding or empathizing kind of with the person who's asking the question and what their background is.
Yeah, great. And, just going into, we talked a little bit about different things that you have to consider in disaster recovery, and how do you do that? You mentioned recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives, and how do you do that? Depending on whether you're just doing a backup recovery within a cluster to another cluster, perhaps that's in the same data center, or out across multiple data centers across a region or across a metro cluster. From the CIA triad type perspective, we're typically looking at the availability piece of that, but it really does incorporate into the whole arena of data security, as well as compliance and governance to a lot of the regulatory agencies that are specifically looking at data security in a Kubernetes type of deployment today. And I know, Matt, you've talked about security a lot in some of the conversations we've had. I don't know if you might want to chime in on some of this.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said before, like there's absolutely an opportunity here. I think Kubernetes itself lends itself really well to a highly secure environment, where maybe an infrastructure centric approach that was focused on servers or specific disks kind of in the past may have been more limited. With Kubernetes, we've got RBAC built in, right? So there's tools that we can leverage when we're looking at data security and governance. Things like zero trust, when considered and implemented correctly, can certainly leverage Kubernetes and employ Kubernetes to help with that kind of cultural approach. It's not really, as we all know, zero trust isn't just an easy button. But yeah, basic things too. I know on the slide there's mention of ransomware and object lock. That's really important that we have. You think of tape, right? Is kind of the classic backup example. Is we need an equivalent for our Kubernetes workloads, right? So obviously, tape itself as a medium doesn't lend itself to some of these modern workloads, but having that ability to ensure that we've got an immutable copy that protects us from things like ransomware, accidental deletion, or even corruption. So these are all things that certainly exist kind of in the ecosystem today. It's just making sure that you have an overall strategic approach and understand kind of what tools you have at your fingertips to be able to align with that approach.
Yeah, and Mike, I'll speak on that because I'll be leading some of those discussions there.
Okay.
Yes, even with Red Hat. So we're hoping to talk about how data is stored, accessed, and archived, regardless of the product or technology. We're looking to have discussions around the full life cycle of the data and how it complies with organizational policies and governing regulation bodies, see bodies like HIPAA and GDPR as FIPS compliance and other government agencies and regulations. But what we're trying to do is have more informed security and data governance policies, and then encourage the community to be more responsible with organization and customer data, because that's just to ensure that we're doing our due care and have due diligence. That's the word I'm looking for, of data security and governance, just to make sure that we're just doing the minimum, at least the minimum, to properly secure and govern customer and organization data.
You know, I was actually speaking with some NetApp folks last week, was it? Yeah, last week, and there was a whole section that we were talking about around. It's not a matter of if you'll get attacked; it's a matter of when. You know, and what do you do about that? How do you mitigate your risks? And you know, I was talking with an IBM folk, some of the IBM folks a while back, where we were talking about, yeah, I mean, really, you can try to protect yourself from an attack, but in reality, it's, you know, there's not a lot that you can do to, you can mitigate some of those risks, but you're not going to be able to eliminate them entirely. And having a good data recovery strategy is going to help tremendously in those arenas.
And understand that you're supposed to have that data recovery strategy.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to end up on the news.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think at the risk, sorry, one last thing to add, but yeah, at the risk of introducing the two letters everyone talks about, but, you know, talk about the sophistication of attacks, you know, can vary widely, but look at AI, right? As that is a, you know, strategic, you know, we look at ransomware, threat actors are using AI. So we need to make sure, it's almost like an arms race. We need to make sure we have the controls and governance in place that, you know, and obviously Kubernetes, OpenShift lends itself to having some of this automation and DevSecOps really. So it's just making sure that we can be prepared, to your points, and be ready for that inevitable attack.
Hey, Matt, that actually brings us really well into the next slide around databases, vectors, and graphs, because there's another subject area that we'll be covering in the data SIG. You know, typically we think about SQL, NoSQL databases, relational databases in Kubernetes. How do you accelerate your DevSecOps projects? How do you deal with SQL compatibility, replication, backup, and restore, all of the things that we were just covering. A lot of those things are also part and parcel to a database deployment, right? Then there are things like geo-distributed clusters and you know, geo-distributed databases that can bring to bear as well. And then going over to the other side here around vector and graph databases, these are new modalities that we see really being used more and more for AI and ML ops type of use cases, and, you know, being able to do that data integration with AI models, being able to look at multi-format search capabilities and multiple data types for vector or graph database type deployments, nodes and edges and properties within graph structures, and how to represent and store complex metadata for different concepts within a standardized format. All areas of great discussion. I believe some of our subject matter experts for database and vectors couldn't make it today, but we do have a number of people from that area of subject matter expertise who will be leading some calls with us as well in this SIG. And then from the other perspective around warehouses and data lakes and lake houses, having some really good conversations about what we see the trends are. I mean, warehouses have been around for business analytics for quite some time. We've taken a lot of tools around, you know, extract, transform, and load tools, building warehouses, building structured data, from semi-structured and unstructured data, building out cubes and star schemas to do a lot of analytics. Well, how has that progressed over time, and how are those things being used today in a Kubernetes type of deployment? Use cases and modalities, some of the emerging patterns that are coming out. And I know Anthony Herr, who is on the call today as well. I saw Anthony join. Some of the things that we've done around validated patterns. So there's some cross linkage here to the other SIG that I'm typically on, right? So I don't know, Anthony, if you had anything that you want to talk about around here, but I know that we've just released an LLM RAG validated pattern.
There's nothing specific, Michael. I appreciate the chance to talk. In this case, there's a number of use cases in our validated pattern library that include storage, and including a resiliency pattern that was made semi-recently. The AI aspects in the RAG LLM are in there, plus our testing and ability to keep operators up to date, or at least verify that they are performing correctly when we're going through these full use cases. It is a good idea to go and check out that other work stream, the other SIG, but happy to have any sort of offline conversations. Thanks, Michael, for bringing it up.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, and I will finish up this segment with data discovery and federation. This would include things like search and cache capabilities as well, but being able to analyze data from any data source and to do that at scale regardless of where that data is sitting. So being able to federate your SQL queries perhaps, or how do you do that in an AI ML operation with not going beyond just your traditional business intelligence or business analytics and incorporating some of these capabilities into AI and ML ops, being able to not only perform a lot of the traditional reporting and business intelligence analysis, but also now being able to use those tools to do some of your data discovery. Like I typically look at the ML ops life cycle, and the first part of that is your data acquisition and preparation for your ML ops life cycle. But in my mind, one of the greatest things that can be brought to bear with some of these new data discovery and federation tools is that whole area of the data scientists actually going out and helping to do that data discovery with your data architects before you do that acquisition and gathering of the data and preparing it for your ML models. This helps to avoid introducing hallucinations to your ML models and things like that, because the data discovery can be done up front without having to do a massive move of all your data through an ETL tool into, say, a data lake. You can do some of that data discovery beforehand and then only move that data that's required for your model. So next steps, please join us, discuss, engage with us. At the top of the agenda document, there's a number of links there that you can just click on, and I did copy some of them in here. This is the schedule and the Google Meet link so that you can join this call. There's a calendar link here as well. And then if you miss any of our calls going forward, you can check out the playlist and listen to some of the recordings that we've had that are, interesting to you. There is the DataSig Slack channel. Again, I would recommend people come in and start some conversations there. It gives some good ideas of some of the things that we could talk about and have future sessions on. And certainly call for papers is always open, so please submit a session. And with that, I will say thank you very much, and I hope that you will be able to join us again in the future for some of these virtual sessions. And if you happen to be in Salt Lake City in a few weeks, please join us there for the OpenShift Commons gathering in North America, day before KubeCon North America 2024. Okay.
Yeah, join us there also for a drink. Okay, so not only for the OpenShift course. Okay. I'll see you there. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks all.